Sacred Heart.
Yes, we're on the same campus. We're technically a separate nonprofit, but we're very much connected with Sacred Heart.
Back, I'm thinking like maybe 94.
Donnie or something like
yes,
that.
Yes.
And now she's down at Holy Family, or Holy Name or Holy Family, which is, I get those two confused, right next to Sienna Francis' house.
Oh, Holy Family.
So she has Patty's Pantry there. And now John Levy.
Could you please introduce yourself?
Okay, my name is Kirsten Hallberg, and I am the outreach director for Nebraska Oxford Houses.
And can you tell us a little bit about the Nebraska Oxford Houses?
We have 24 houses in Omaha, 3 in Grand Island, 2 men's and a women's house in Grand Island, and then a men's house in Kearney. And then we also have 2 houses, a men and a women's house over in Council Bluffs, that we kind of take under our wing in the Nebraska houses.
Mm. And how did the Oxford houses started? Were they like an offshoot of a?
No, they actually started back in 1975. Paul Malloy, who's the CEO, he and 5 other gentlemen were in a county-run halfway house. They wouldn't stay sober. Mm-hmm. So they pooled all their money, decided that they could make the rent on the house. They could, pay the utilities. The only thing they couldn't afford was staff. And so they decided to run it themselves. And it's just kind of evolved from there. The houses do not have any staff members living there. They elect president, secretary, treasurer, comptroller who collects the rent money. And they have weekly meetings where they discuss business issues, what bills need to be paid, if there are any behavioral problems in the house, then what the consequences for that will be. There's a 0 tolerance for drug and alcohol use in all the houses. If a majority of the house members even suspect that somebody's using, they can be asked to leave. And then they have 1 hour to pack what they can, and then they have to make arrangements to come back and get the rest.
Okay. So that was one of the questions I was going to ask you. What about relapse? Do you allow them at any time to come back in after that?
They have to be out for a minimum of 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
And the house can agree to rescreen them, but it's better if they go to another house, just because obviously for whatever reason that house didn't work for them. So, but it's up to the house, if the house agrees to let them back in, then they can do that.
How many women do you normally have in a house?
We have to have a minimum of 6 in order to be chartered with Oxford House. The most we have in a house right now is 10, and that's at our house in Council Bluffs.
And how many do you let children into the Oxford houses?
Well, I think it's 6 out of 11 of our women's houses do allow children. All of them allow children to spend the night on weekends, but 6 of the 11 allow them to actually live there.
And are they coming from now the Oxfords are 3/4 houses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when the women are coming with their children, are they just coming off the street, or are they coming?
It depends. Some come from treatment, some come from prison, some come from or referred by probation, parole, drug court. Get a lot of drug court clients. I would say the majority of our people in Omaha come from Campus for Hope. And that's probably our biggest referral agency.
How many do you usually get from prison?
It depends. Like right now, we have 0 beds available in Omaha, and it's been that way for quite a while. So we're looking at opening another men's house and another women's house, just to be able to accommodate more. Because now we've got a waiting list, and we've had to shut down the prison pipeline. But we did just get a gal in. She's on the reentry furlough program. Are you familiar with that?
No.
Yeah. We just got a gal in from that this last week, I think it was.
House. Well, that's good. Now that we know that, do they share their rooms, or do they get their own rooms when they come?
When they first move in, they share a room, and then they get the single rooms by seniority.
Single rooms by seniority. And do you guys have like a family night, or are there any types of programming that you do while you're in the 3/4 houses?
You have to attend 3 recovery meetings a week. There are no The only formal type of meeting we have Monday nights, we offer aftercare out at the recovery zone. Mike Railing, who used to be a substance abuse counselor at OCC, runs that for us. And that is required for anybody that's on parole.
Okay.
But it's also paid for by the chapter, so it's free.
Okay.
But other than that, you know, everybody is required to do 3 recovery meetings a week. Some houses make you have signed cards, some don't. You know, the democracy, I mean, there are certain things that are enforced, you know, statewide. The no using, you have to be current on your rent, you know, be current on your bills. You have to kick out people, using, you have to be run democratically. And then we have a list, and I did bring you some information here. We have a list of policies and guidelines that all the houses follow, but different things like curfew, the amount of fines for not completing your chore, those are things that are set by each house. This particular house, these guys, if you don't do your chore in this house, it's $20.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, most of the women's houses, it's like $5. And then if you don't do it 2 weeks or 2 times in a row, then it might go up to 10. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that each house gets to decide on by themselves.
So so from house to house, the rules and the curfews will change. Are there any state guidelines that you have to follow?
In order to qualify for the state loan to start up, the $4,000 startup loan, the houses have to be run democratically. They have to be zero tolerance. So, and the state has actually issued loans to some entities. I can think of 3 in the last maybe 4 years, and each one of them went belly up, never paid any money back. You know, they just didn't work. And it's because they weren't being, I mean, this sounds crazy, it's because they weren't being run democratically. You know, they weren't being run like an Oxford House. There was, in a couple instances, it was a church group that tried to say they were doing it, you know, democratically, but they really weren't.
And you mean like by voting and having the house run a lot?
Yeah, like I can come into a house, as long as the house is abiding by its charter, meaning kicking out people who use, if they're current on their bills, and if they're being run democratically, then I'm just limited to giving advice.
Okay.
I have no power. But if I come into a house that's, you know, for example, not current on their bills, and if I come in and I realize that there are people that owe rent, but they're not on a contract, a rent contract, then I can place them on a contract. I can take corrective action if they're in violation of their charter. So
now, I would like to ask, how did you become involved with, now this is going to be about you, how did you become involved with the Oxford House?
I worked at Santa Monica Halfway House as a counselor when I first heard about Oxford House. And I thought, come on, no staff, how can that work, you know? I just thought it was ludicrous. And then after I left Santa Monica, I went to work for Heartland Family Service, and my boss at that time was on the board of the Good Neighbor Foundation, which owned, there was only one Oxford House. That was back in '98. There was only one Oxford House, and he was on the board, and they couldn't keep the house full. You know, the Good Neighbor Foundation had to keep paying all the utility bills and stuff because the women couldn't keep it full. So they contracted with Heartland Family Service to provide a staff member to go down and figure it out. And since I'd worked at Santa Monica, they asked me to go. So I was the house was on 24th and E, and I'd go down there every Monday night for their meeting at 6 o'clock, and these girls would fix me dinner, and I'm thinking, am I getting paid for this? This is great. But what we realized is they didn't even have a house manual. You know, they didn't know what they were supposed to be doing. So we got the house manual, we read through it at every meeting, decided what was supposed to happen. What they were doing, basically, they were just living there. You know, they weren't going to meetings, they just were trying to live there and stay sober without any kind of structure at all. So we figured that out and built a house, and then we opened another one, and then we opened another one, and now we're 26 hours later.
Right.
Wow.
And how do they have to get a job done right away when they come in?
Yeah, they're given 2 weeks to find a job. If they're actively looking during those 2 weeks and they just can't possibly find a good job, which is, common with people
Right.
with felonies,
Mhm.
then the house will usually work with them. But if they're staying in bed till 10, 11 o'clock in the morning and, not being out from 9 to 3 actively looking, then they'll be asked to leave.
Right, so they have to be looking.
Mm-hmm.
What do you normally charge them for rent?
Average is $400. That's what it is in most of our houses. Some of them are a little cheaper, but that covers rent, utilities, cable, internet, things like paper towels, toilet paper, laundry detergent,
Mhm.
coffee, stuff like that. So basically the only thing that the residents have to buy is personal care items and food.
Food, and so they can probably apply for assistance to get stamps or whatnot.
Mhm.
So do they just bring all their food together and take turns cooking, or?
No, that kind of varies from house to house. This group of guys, they like to cook. They
Mhm.
have a grill, they have a smoker. They like to cook. Some houses it's like nobody in the house knows how to cook and they all do fast food. It's just
Right.
kind of, it varies from house to house
Mhm.
and from group to group.
Mhm.
Which group happens to be in there. A lot of our women's houses will have like a family night where they eat as a group.
Mhm.
Usually on the nights that they have their house meeting. But there's no structure that way.
No structure that way, so it's you're providing your own food.
Mhm.
Each individual, there's no like.
You have your own cupboard space,
Right, okay.
your own refrigerator space.
And that's the way it goes. Okay, well, I didn't know that. That's just a little different from what the Arch was, because I think that having the no staff and the zero tolerance.
Coming from both ends of it, I am totally convinced that the houses work as well as they do because there are no staff members there.
Okay.
There's no one there telling them what to do, how to do it,
Mhm.
when to do it.
Mhm.
In the beginning I just thought that can't possibly work right, because I was used to writing the treatment plans, and
Right.
finally I realized when I saw how well the houses were working, I thought, oh my God, let them do the work. They're perfectly capable. And it's so much easier for them. I'll still get calls from my house saying, oh, we want you to come and talk to so-and-so about yada, yada, yada. And I always say, try it as a house first,
Mhm.
and then call somebody else. You can't depend on others to solve your problems.
Mm.
And what I find is that the women that are being called on the carpet for whatever, they can hear it much better from one of their peers than from somebody like me, who they see as an authority. The latest example, the Blackstone house wanted me to come over, and they had a gal who was kind of struggling. She's got 2 kids. She's working. She got a car so she could get to work. So then she had to get her license plates, and then she got behind on rent. And so, they wanted me to come over and what was it she had done? She paid her insurance,
Mhm.
and then was short on rent. And I said, okay, you guys have a meeting.
Mhm.
You discuss it as a house. Let me know what you come up with. And so when they called to tell me, it's exactly what I would have recommended for them. They told this girl that she needed to develop a budget.
Mhm.
And I think they could have given her a 6 o'clock curfew and she would have handled that much better than this budget. She freaked out because then they were going to know exactly where her money was going.
Mhm.
But it worked out well. She's now current on rent.
That's good.
Yeah.
So how long do you let the women stay?
Actually, you can stay as long as you like. There's a
Correct.
guy that lived in our cookhouse for almost 10 years. I kept running into him over the years. Hey, you still here? Well, the last time I saw him was down at Stevens Center. I was doing a presentation, and he was doing he was volunteering down there. And I said, so you still at the cookhouse? And he said, no, I moved. And I said, really, where? And he said, right around the corner.
So there's no time limit.
No
They can
time
stay
limit.
for as long as they want,
Mhm.
as long as they're abiding by the rules and they're
Mhm.
not.
Mhm.
Pretty good. You just have to get used to the shift of people coming and going all the time.
Right.
What's the average stay, if they can stay as long as they want?
Well, we asked for a minimum 3-month commitment. I'd say the average stay is probably closer to 5 or 6 months. The longer you stay, the better your chances of staying sober when you get out.
Right.
I mean, our success rate is wonderful in the houses. You know, it's common to have like 92-95% success rate per month in the houses. But the ones that move out and stay sober the longest are the ones that stayed in a house for, you know, anywhere from 6 months to a year.
And there's more than one per room, I'm sure, more than one person per bedroom. They probably have to share bedrooms or...
They do when they first move in.
When they first move in?
And then, like this house, I believe there are 10 guys living here now, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4 single rooms, so.
4 single rooms?
Mm-hmm.
So they remodel, probably the upstairs is probably bedrooms, and maybe in the basement bedrooms there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's 2 single bedrooms in the basement, and then 2 single bedrooms upstairs, and the rest are.
Is there anything I missed that you guys think is
did you say what the curfews are and what? Is that house to house?
That's in that packet I gave her. When you first move in, the women are much stricter than the men. The women's houses, when you first week is 6 p.m. curfew. Weeks 2 and 3 is 8 o'clock. Week 4 is 10 o'clock. And then after 30 days, you go to the house curfew, which is usually like 10:30 during the week and 12:30 on weekends. The men's houses, it's 8 o'clock until you get a job, and then it goes to 10 o'clock after that.
What about members of the opposite sex, like if they have a boyfriend or a girlfriend?
They can visit up until your curfew. So if you have a 6 o'clock curfew, you can't have any visitors after 6. I mean, male or female. Some houses, like the only time you cannot have visitors is during the house meeting. But we've had women's houses where they come together as a house, and just, you know, if there's a girl living there who has a boyfriend over every night, it's disruptive. You know, because it's everybody's home. So they may say, you know, okay, you're limited to 2 nights a week or 3 nights a week, or, you know, they usually try to work things out.
Are they allowed to bring them to their personal room, or do
No.
they have to stay in this common space?
Common areas, yeah. Now we did just in the last year, a year ago May, we started a women's alumni house.
Oh.
And we just started our second one in June. The alumni house, in order to qualify to move in there, you have to have lived in an Oxford house for 6 months. And had, you know, 6 months, at least 6 months of continuous sobriety. And once you move into the alumni house, there's 3 rules. Stay sober, pay your rent, don't be disruptive. You can have overnight guests. You can take as many overnights as you want.
So more
there's
independent.
No curfew.
Yeah.
And with the first bunch that moved in, their first week, everybody was home by 10:30. They were just so excited to be with each other, and you know, it's like no rules. We don't have to do our chores or get a fine. I mean, it was just incredible. In that first 14 months, there was 1 relapse in that house, and that was a gal who had actually lived in a house like 10 years before, and had some grief issues, and so she moved in and she couldn't stay there. But anyway, it was so effective that we decided to open a second one.
Wow.
The reason, anyway, the reason I'm so excited about the alumni houses is because for women especially, it's like the minute their 3 months is up, they gotta go.
Right.
You know, I need to see my boyfriend more. I don't like the circular curfew. So it allows them more freedom, but it still provides them with accountability and support.
And a transition, yeah, I like that. Great.
So when they pay their rent, their monthly fee, where does it go? Does it go to...
Each house opens their own checking account.
So each house opens their own, and so the house is responsible for paying the bills also? Really? And nobody oversees that? There's nobody who takes the permanent accounting?
They have to bring their bank statements and then an audit, a monthly audit, and report to the chapter meetings every month. And so, you know, we oversee that. And then if we suspect, like if a house is behind in their bills, and we know that, you know, they're full, then we'll go in and look through the books and stuff and see what's going on.
Okay. So do they elect one person to be in charge of paying the rent, or?
No, they elect a comptroller to collect the rent, and then a treasurer to write the bills, so that you know, it's kind of checks and balances there. There are 2 people that are in charge of the books. The treasurer cannot be a check signer. The check signer is usually the president and the secretary, and the checks are only written during the weekly house meetings, so that, and otherwise the checkbook's locked up, so.
And so do they send something to the main office for the director, for the Oxford houses? Is it say, they say, okay, here's our rent on the house, and then the rest of it's gone to pay our...
Oh, no. I mean, each house, we lease from individuals in the community.
Okay.
Yeah, each house signs its own lease.
Each house signs its own lease.
Oh, so you don't own the houses? They're
No,
just rented?
no.
No. You just oversee them.
Mm-hmm.
So the monthly rent or the lease on the house would vary from house to house
Yes.
as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So who initially sets up the lease to start the Oxford house?
Whoever's moving in, we get the house president to sign it on behalf of this, in this particular example, it would be Oxford House Dundee.
Mm-hmm.
And that way, anybody that moves in after that time is still bound to that lease because
Okay.
it's on behalf of the house.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well,
Any questions that you can think
I
of?
learned a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of information. It's so good
Yeah.
to know that this resource is available.
Right.
I think that we all learned something from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the way it's ran, yeah. It's pretty
I'll tell
neat.
you what, there's 1,560, I want to say, nationwide now. They're Australia, Ghana,
Wow.
Canada. I mean, it's just incredible.
We're
That
two
is
men
amazing.
starting up saying we're not going to stay sober.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I believe the AA group that they went to, they kept going to AA and complaining about, the house was going to close, and one of the members at AA said, well, I'll loan you guys $700, and
Mm-hmm.
lease it yourself. And so they did, and they all kicked in there, figured out what it was going to be, and then I think probably the neatest thing is they decided, okay, rather than tell people you can only stay for 3 months and you have to move out,
Mm-hmm.
we'll just open another house. And that way it allows people to stay there as long as it takes them to feel comfortable, with sobriety. So, because anybody can get sober. It's learning how to live sober,
That's true.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's good to know that there's really not a time limit and that your longest residence was 10 years.
Mhm.
That kind of makes sense if they're leasing the house themselves from whomever they're leasing it. So the houses that are leased are not are any of them owned by the Oxford
None
Corporation?
of them. None of them.
Not one.
No.
That
No,
makes
that would
it
be a
nice for
nightmare.
the
Yeah.
maintenance too, right?
Pardon me?
That makes it nice for maintenance too, right?
Mhm.
Because they have to come in and repair. The landlord would have to come in and repair what it's
And taxes, and there's a lot
Yeah.
of other things.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a nightmare if the Oxford House organization owned 1,600 houses. It would
Right,
be
yeah, huh.
crazy.
So it sounds like you almost use the AA 12 traditions in the
Mhm.
house then.
Mhm. There's not a formal alliance there, but it's strongly encouraged. Like, for example, our Nebraska houses require 3 recovery meetings a week. Some houses don't require any, and yet people still go.
Do they have a requirement to get a sponsor? Does
Yeah,
it sound? Oh,
2
they do?
weeks.
Okay.
2 weeks to get a sponsor.
Yeah, I included all those
Good, all
rules
those
in there.
in here?
Uh-huh.
Good deal. Well, this is nice because none of the other houses you're our 4th house that we've interviewed, and none of them have given, oh no, I take that back. The Arch did give us a list of rules.
The Arch sounds very tough. Do you get a lot of guys from the
The
Arch?
Arch is hardcore. Yeah.
Sounds like boot camp.
Yeah, it is. And some people need that. Some people can't get sober without that.
Yeah.
But that's halfway house,
Mhm.
It's and I think they do have a couple 3/4 way houses, but there are some people that cannot get sober without that hardcore stuff.
Regiment.
Mhm.
Yeah, some people can take a lot more pain than others.
Yeah.
And so they really have to suffer to get.
Mhm.
Now, with all of your experience, what do you think the difference is getting a woman sober and getting a man sober?
Right. Good question.
What do you think the differences are there?
I can only speak like house-wide. I
Mhm.
know women's houses are so much. I mean, women have hormones going on. They love getting in each other's business, which is not always bad, because that they're gonna call each other on their stuff.
Mhm.
Whereas men, it's live and let live, and oh, that's not my business. Well, okay, so it's not your business, but now he's using it, so you have to kick him out, you know? I would say the women are probably more supportive of each other. You know, and the men are just kind of look the other way.
Oh,
Now, this
interesting.
particular house has a great group of guys in it right now. I mean, they, like I said, they charge $20 if you don't get your chore done.
Mhm.
That's serious.
And they're, you know, yeah, it's just a good group of guys.
Mhm.
They like cooking together. You know, they like decorating. I mean, it's a neat group.
Mhm. And have they been together for a long time, this specific group?
Nope. I think the first one in this particular group moved in like April.
Mm. That's good.
Mhm. And they actually, the house got behind on rent when they were down in numbers, and so they're chartered for 8, but they went up to 10, so they could pay off their bills, and they bought a new lawnmower. They've got a garden out in back.
Wow.
It's just a neat group.
Mhm.
That's nice.
Mhm.
Yeah, that is pretty good. Somebody said, let's do it, and they said, okay. So it's at $400 per month per each guy.
Mhm.
That's good.
Yep,
I think that's about the average. I think $400 a month's about the average.
I think, well, I know our Lake Castle house, a women's house at 72nd Lake, they're only $340 a month, I think.
Mhm.
And I believe the men's house on 45th and Poppleton is $325, but most of our houses right now are $400. So.
Okay. Well, thank you
Oh, you're
very much
welcome.
for that.